Greetings, and welcome to Today in Trek, our daily show about what has, is, and will happen in the world of Trek. It's January 3rd, and our guest host today is Cadet Delt Afed and his fellow newbie graduates at Starfleet Academy. Today's episode is brought to you by a cup of Rocket Fuel coffee from Fluid Coffee Roasters in scenic Crown Point, Indiana. In case you're curious, Rocket Fuel is a mix of coffee, cream, and, wait for it, maple syrup. Oh my God, who knew? Thanks to the amazing pirate scum who invited me to join them for a great cup of coffee and a fantastic chat. If you've got a fave coffee vendor who also contributes to the greater good, let me know and I'll give them a try and a shout out. On to Today in Trek. Let's hit those birthdays first. I have no doubt that you've all seen Star Trek IV, the one with the whales, and I'm sure you've all oohed and ahed over the aircraft carrier Enterprise getting a cameo in the movie. Well, like many other stars, the Enterprise was actually portrayed by a look-alike, the USS Ranger. So what does this have to do with Trek birthdays, you ask? Well, it was on January 3rd, 1919, that John E. Horton was born. After serving in the military in World War II, he went on to work as a military and government liaison, helping to coordinate and provide military services for filmmakers. It was through his efforts that the Ranger was able to appear in Star Trek IV, and he arranged for crew members to fill roles as the Enterprise crew. The other Enterprise crew, that is. His work was so appreciated that he received a special closing credit in Star Trek IV. And since we're on Star Trek IV, the good one, January 3rd, 1932 marks the birth date of cinematographer Donald Peterman, who earned an Academy Award nomination for his work on the movie. In 1927, William Boyett was born. He played Lieutenant Dan Bell in the TNG episode The Big Goodbye. He was the cop who didn't like Dixon Hill, as well as playing a policeman in the 6th season episode of Time Zero. And not saying he was typecast, but he was also in Adam 12 and Emergency. Speaking of gruff but ultimately lovable characters, Jeremy Kemp was born on this day in 1935. Kemp is best known to Trekkies for his portrayal of Jean-Luc Picard's older brother, Robert, in the episode Family. It's interesting to note that Kemp was born in Chesterfield, Derbyshire, however you say that thing, in England, and that's a mere 42 miles from where Patrick Stewart was born. The actor who played the second incarnation of Bruce Maddox in Star Trek Picard, John Ailes, was born on January 3rd, 1969. In our continuing mission to prep you for your next round of 6 degrees of Star Trek separation, Mr. Ailes also guest starred in the series Major Crimes, acting in the episode Final Cut with Jonathan Del Arco, and it was directed by Roxanne Dawson. Jason Marsden, who played Grimp in the DS9 4th season episode Bar Association, and voiced the character of Raymond Marr in the TNG 5th season episode Silicon Avatar, was born in 1975. In Trek series on this day, the TOS episode Whom Gods Destroy was aired in 1969. While the episode touches lightly on the topic of mental health in the Star Trek era, it has 2 interesting side comments, if you will. One being that the newest inmate, Garth of Izar, played by Steve Einat, was, according to Kirk, a legendary Starfleet captain who went insane. Given the number of Starfleet captains who seem to suffer from some form of emotional or mental health issues, which we'll address later in today's discussion, I'm surprised that Starfleet wasn't more proactive about helping them with these potential issues, ship's counselors notwithstanding. Second, don't they have any security regarding these away missions to potentially dangerous places? I mean, like TFA, MFA, anything? That said, it's still a good episode. Oh, and remember when I said that the pilot for DS9 premiered on January 1st, 1993? It didn't. It was January 3rd. Apparently, you still need to vet Google these days. In 2001, the Voyager episode Human Error began filming. This episode explores Seven of Nine's personal evolution away from being a Borg into becoming herself, which admittedly was the premise of a lot of Voyager episodes. Not that I'm complaining. She does this through several holodeck simulations, including B'Elanna and Tom's baby shower, a date with Chakotay, and discussing personalizing her living quarters with a holographic Neelix, which leads to Neelix's comment about the drapes needing to match the carpet. I'm so not going there, folks. But that aside, the episode does delve somewhat into the topics of mental health. Andre Bormanis, author and science consultant for TNG, DS9, and Voyager, and technical consultant for Star Trek Insurrection, commented, "It was a metaphor for dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, and we got some truly moving responses from the fans. It is an interesting episode, and much as I'm not a Voyager fan, I highly recommend this one. In 2019, the Star Trek short The Escape Artist premiered. The episode is a Harry Mudd-focused vignette, but is most notable for having been written by a Star Trek fan, Mike McMahan, who went on to create and produce the amazing Star Trek Lower Decks, which very sadly just finished its 5th and final season. If you have not watched Lower Decks, I heartily recommend it. On a sad note, on this day in 1992, Dame Judith Anderson died at the age of 94. She was considered to be one of the greatest classical stage actresses of the 20th century and had earned 2 Emmy Awards, a Tony, and was nominated for a Grammy and an Oscar. In 1984, she played the role of T'Lar in Star Trek III, The Search for Spock, where she presided over the attempt to reintegrate Spock's body and his katra. In 2021, comic book artist Dick Kolpa passed away. An artist from Loves Park, Illinois, he drew 3 arcs of the Star Trek comic strip from July to December of 1983, the aptly named 18th story arc, the retirement of Admiral Kirk, and the 20th story arc. Star Trek of the Future! Star Trek Countdown for Section 31 is continuing. We have 21 days before we go live on January 24th, 2025. That is in the U.S. The show will be shown on Paramount Plus here in the States. Star Trek Online update, today's Universal is still Gateway to Greathor, and we're still in a red alert with an XP boost until January 14th, so go level those tunes and master those ships. If you've got more info about what will happen, or has happened on this day in Trek, including streaming services that will be carrying Section 31 internationally, drop me a message or comment below, and if you've got gaming updates or news you'd like to share, let me know. And we'll see you tomorrow.